What's going on, everybody? My name is Paul. Thanks for joining me here at All In today. Now, everybody, settle down, settle down. We are more than, probably about more than halfway through this Halloween season. So, class, we have to start buckling down with the important stuff. We've had fun these first couple weeks, and I've been pretty lax on the homework, but now we're gonna get down to the nitty gritty. This week we are going to be going over more, I'd say, more stories than books. I know the first 2 weeks, books are harder for some people to read than, you just had to find a lot of time for it. You got your movies, your shows. There's just so much in this Halloween season, and we only have so much time. Between work and school and games and TV and we only have so much time. We have family pressures and friends, and trust me, it's a lot. It takes almost too much just to enjoy this season. Like, Halloween is my favorite time of the year, and it's almost like everything works against me to be able to actually enjoy the season. Last year I had a hurricane that just swept through and totally demolished it. This year I've been trying to stick with it. I'm like, no, this is my time of the year, but I'm still having to deal with the horrors of last year. I made a video on that, kind of shows what we went through there, and so hopefully you'll understand why some of my streams and stuff like that has been lacking, I'd say. We've been rebuilding a lot over here, but that doesn't mean that we can just sit back on our laurels and just let this season go past, because as always we have our horror homework. Now we are on week 3. We are midway through. We have about 2 weeks, I'd say, left. With Halloween quickly approaching. So I figured that this week it would be really important for us to kind of buckle down and see who can we turn to as one of the true masters of horror. What is a genre of horror that can really, I think everybody just understands it's terrifying because we don't understand it. Well, let's go ahead and start with the father of unimaginable horror. This week's theme is H.P. Lovecraft. You're going to roll your eyes, and I already know that you are. I mean, I roll my eyes whenever I see videos that are sitting here talking about the fathers of horror. We talk about our Stephen Kings. We talk about our H.P. Lovecrafts, our Edgar Allan Poes, our Bram Stokers, our mothers, mothers of horror. What was that lady's name who wrote, she wrote The Haunting of Hill House. I actually can't remember. Shirley Jackson. Yeah, she wrote The Haunting of Hill House. Of course, you got your Mary Shelleys, which I don't know if I'd call Frankenstein horror. The more I read that book, I've read Frankenstein multiple times at this point. I don't love the book. I gotta be honest with you. I know that's gonna, some people are gonna kind of balk at that, but I'm just not a big fan. And I never really read a lot else by her. Maybe that's something I need to look into, is Mary Shelley, and see what other stuff that she did. But I admit that I am kind of lacking on that front. But anyways, no, like I said before, we are going to be talking about H.P. Lovecraft. A lot of people have heard about him, but it's him being he was in the early 19th century, or I'm sorry, early 20th century. So I guess it is late 19th, early 20. Anyways, the language that he used, the English is kind of hard to parse through. It's people would call old timey or whatever, and so I understand that. But there are actually a lot of ways to enjoy his writing. And even in this day and age, there are a lot of people, we can find podcasts and stuff like that, that kind of, I guess you'd say, make it more palatable. But for me, I just really love this old gothic type, style of horror, where it's long before, because the modern age for me kind of dispels with a lot of things that are scary or terrifying, or we things are scary for different reasons. It's people and what we get up to and what we find out is going on behind closed doors. But I love old school like monstrosities. And that's something that Lovecraft does fantastically. And sometimes the monstrosities actually aren't that bad. Like some of them, they just kind of exist, or even some of them, in like his like in his Dagon writings and stuff like that. It's like these are just people who may look like monsters to us, but are just trying their best to live their daily life. Also, my hair is starting to get out of control if I don't get. The scariest thing is my bangs right now. They're so long I have to swoop them to the. I look like Karen. I'm about to go and yell at somebody's manager, man. I really need to go get them cut. Last time I got my hair cut though, like they didn't do anything with my bangs. My bangs are like down to here at this point. They cut the rest of my hair and they're like, so do you still want bangs to play with? I was like, yeah, keep a little bit of bangs. But they're like, okay, I got you, fam. And I'm pretty sure they gave me extensions because when I walked out of the haircut, my bangs were somehow longer. And so now I got to do this weird swoopy thing. So my hair's super long on one side, short on the other. It just doesn't really make sense. But you know what also doesn't make sense? Things that we can't imagine. So try to think about being a writer, a director, something like that, and you're trying to posit something to your audience that you're telling them this is unfathomable. This is unthinkable. This is something that the human mind cannot understand. So let me explain it to you. If my mind can't understand it, then how in the world are you going to explain it to me? And that is what I love about Lovecraftian horror. Lovecraft has ascended on just H.P. Lovecraft. Like the man, who did this writing, it is ascended so far beyond him because he started his own genre. And it's one of my favorite horror genres. So when you call something Lovecraftian, it's in the vein of the worlds, the ideologies that Lovecraft has built. It doesn't have to actually have anything to do with his writings, like Cthulhu and stuff like that. It doesn't have to have anything to do with that. It just has to be like, when I think of it, it's like a cosmic horror that the brain can't fathom. And if the characters from the show see it, it kind of breaks your brain a little bit. You know what I mean? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And a good way to really wade into this is actually with one of H.P. Lovecraft's later writings. He died in 1936, if I believe. It was of small intestine cancer or something like that. I can't remember right off the top of my head, but I believe his death was in 1936. So he wrote quite a few things that year too, which is kind of crazy. The man sitting there dying, I guess he had nothing better. He couldn't go out or anything, so I guess he just sit there and write about things. So one of the last stories that or I guess what you'd say got published, I don't know how long he was writing it, but it was called Mountains of Madness. So Mountains of Madness is set in Antarctica, and it's based around these explorers that unearth these old ruins where old gods that came from the stars sleep. So these are terrestrial beings that are terrifying to us, but I'm guessing to each other, they just are what they are. Like how humans can probably be terrifying to some of the animals that we come across, but to us, we just are. So we call them extraterrestrial aliens because they do not come from Earth. These beings, the old gods, your Cthulhus, your Shoggoths, these types of beings, they do not come from Earth. They didn't start here. They fell from the sky and they end up pretty much just crash landing upon the Earth long before humans were. They were here before the humans were, but they aren't of this Earth. So as I said before, this is one of his later stories, and it really ties his universes together. There are many different H.P. Lovecraft writings. And I mean, at this point, most of them are short stories. I don't even know if I've actually ever read anything from him that was a full book. I mean, some are longer than others, of course, like novellas and stuff like that. But for the most part, he writes short stories, and he sets up these worlds, and he sets up these locations, and he sets up these different type of creatures, and like it's And that's something that I respect about him. He doesn't he doesn't occupy a lot of your time. He he gives you options. That's the thing about Stephen King is when you're reading a Stephen King book, I mean, you're talking about The Stand, It, stuff like that. Like you're going to be there for a long time. Thousands of pages that are all surrounded by one story. H.P. Lovecraft, you can get through quite a few of his stories in one sitting. And I love short story anthologies. But I also love the thing that's one of the things that I like about Stephen King and your Joe Hills and people like this is when a writer's universe is all connected together. And for the most part, that's how H.P. Lovecraft's works are. So, as I said before, we were talking about Mountains of Madness. I think that is a really good story to start off with, so that even though it's one of his later stories, you kind of understand what you're getting into. It kind of is explaining where these monsters from the myths that he makes, earlier in his career, kind of is explaining where they come from and what they are and where they're from, when before he kind of talks about them as an unknowable thing, unimaginable thing. For us to really understand horror, part of it has to be the curse of the unknown. That's why we're so scared of darkness. We're scared of nighttime because we can't see what's in front of us. And if I can't see something, I don't understand it. It's the same reason, for the most part, you have something that is also scary when it comes to like racism, homophobia, things like that. That's scary on multiple accounts because for the most part, people who have this, I'd say, this hate for others in their heart is because they don't understand them. This is something that I don't understand, and because my brain can't comprehend it, I am scared of it, and I am against it. Because I cannot understand this, I am going to be against it. And that's all horror is. You see this monster, it could hurt you, maybe it won't, maybe it's just something that looks scary but isn't, you don't understand it, your body is against it, so you seize up in terror. And that is what's so good about what H.P. Lovecraft started, is getting us terrified of things that we don't even understand. I can't even imagine what some of these things look like, but yet I'm terrified of it because I can't understand what it looks like and how big they are and what can they do to me. Like, I don't even know the extent of their powers. So why am I so scared of it? I'm scared of it because I don't know. It is the fear of the unknown. And that's one of the great things about this story, Antarctica. Not a lot of us have been there. It's really cold, and most of us trying to go there would not survive Antarctica. So the climate alone, the landscape alone, you can't live through. So now you're not only having to deal with the environment, something that you're cut off from the rest of the world, but now you're having to deal with these giant old gods and like these old temples that you don't understand what they are, these old ruins, and you don't know what's in them. Like this is a great horror story because of everything involved. And so going from Mountains of Madness, I want to talk about a movie that I think if we're big horror buffs, I think we've seen it, but since it's older, I know a lot of people have a lot of problems going backwards, like, hey, well, this movie's old, I don't want anything to do with it. I've talked about quite a few old horror movies at this point, but this is old. Some of this stuff looks cheesy. It's practical effects. There's no CG. Like, this is kind of cheesy. But the movie that I'm talking about is called The Thing. The Thing actually takes place in Antarctica. It's this the one I'm talking about, of course, is an even older one, but the one I'm specifically talking about is the 1982 version. It takes place in Antarctica. A group of scientists unearth something deep within the ice. It's an unknown entity that also comes from space and is set forth unimaginable horrors upon this scientific crew on this expedition. So the thing about this is, so where the movie starts, this has already been unearthed. So somebody else came across this unknown horror that was buried underneath the ice, and this is just a crew who comes across it at a later time. You find out later on that this first crew pretty much all died off because of this thing, and this crew is coming in the aftermath of an aftermath that they don't know about. They don't know that there's anything wrong. In fact, it's like Russians who discovered this thing. This is an American crew, so they don't know what they're getting themselves into, and that's scary. You know, you don't know what's going on around you. You don't know what other people are doing around you. So this is something that this is a sin that somebody else committed that you're now having to pay for. That's wiping out your entire scientific colony. A sin that you didn't even do. You didn't even dig this up, but you're having to pay the price. That's terrifying in itself. Us having to pay for somebody else's blunder. But my horror, their horror, it's all the same. We all have to deal with it. So, and that one, again, I like I said, I know it's old and some of it's going to look cheesy, but I really do think it holds up very well. I think that I like the practical effects. I like the way this looks. I like the monster designs, and like, spoiler alert, just in case you don't know what the movie's about, though I think you probably do at this point. It is about not being able to trust others that you see, like, you know, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but to a way worse degree, where it's not just, okay, they look like us, but when we find out that they aren't us, they can transform into things. I can cut somebody's head off, and now that's a whole nother like species that's gonna transform. I can cut their hand off, and that's gonna so like, you dismember somebody, which, you know, in a zombie movie or something like that, if you dismember them, cut off their head, in most zombie movies, that's the end. Chop off the head, they're done. That's what you go for. This movie, no matter what you do, you have to burn them completely to stop them. You're having to burn things completely in Antarctica. You're surrounded by snow. Everything's pretty cold. Fire isn't really that abundant. So you're having to find a way to not only figure out something that you don't know anything about. How am I gonna figure out if my friend is one of them? I don't even know what that is. How in the world? It has all his memories. It has all his mannerisms. It is him, essentially. How do I find out that that's not him? And they just really do a great job with that movie. That it's a mystery, it's a horror, and it's like a whodunit. That just like I said before, the body horror, the monsters that are made is so gross, and it's like, I don't know what I would do in this situation. Like, I really don't know. I've watched it with some people, and they're like, well, I would just kill myself. Like, if I was in this situation, I would legitimately just kill myself, you know, because it's a bad situation to be in. I don't want to talk too much more about it because I don't want to spoil it. If you've never seen, again, the 1982 version of The Thing, I highly recommend it. They do make a prequel that came out in 2011 that actually shows the Russian, I think it was Russians, I might be wrong there, but I'm pretty sure it's Russians that unearthed the thing. And the prequel that came out in 2011, it's okay. I mean, it's all right. I didn't hate it, but it doesn't stand up to, you know, The Thing. But if you're wanting to see what happened to the previous crew, of course, check that out. Do that on your own time. That's not part of your homework. That's more extra credit if you want it. I don't really care either way. Skeleton Dan, the reason I know that, you know, I can't really trust everything that he says, you can see that he got him some cool, it was supposed to be like a sash, but it doesn't really fit around him because he doesn't have much of a waist, so we just turned it into a keep out crossing sign. But it was supposed to be like one of those those high school sashes, but it didn't work out. But that's all right. Skeleton Dan, he likes the prequel actually better than the 1982 version. So when it comes to him, I like, he's a good guy to hang out with, but I don't really listen to a lot of his suggestions, to be honest. Plus, all he wants to do is watch that spooky, scary skeletons video, that music video, type thing. He just wants to watch that over and over and over on repeat. He really likes to rattle his bones to that, but it kind of gets old. It got old like 2 years ago. So anyways, to the next movie, we're going to be talking about something that this is going to be another piece of extra credit. This movie is called The Void. I personally really enjoyed this movie for the most part. It's not saying Antarctica or anything like that. It's actually set in, I'm guessing, America or something. It's just like a small town. Um, I don't think this movie's perfect. Again, it's called The Void. I don't think that this movie's perfect, but there are so many good ideas and there's so much about it that I do like that I can kind of forgive it, even if I think the last little bit, like maybe last 10 minutes or something, is a little bit too confusing even for me. But it's one of those things where, hey, maybe I just can't wrap my head around it. But this takes place in a small town. It actually takes place at a hospital, and ends up like there's some stuff going on, and there are people that, like, the people in the hospital pretty much can't leave after an event that happens. Um, I'll just say two characters come in, and they're like they're chasing something, and oh no, I'm sorry, they're chasing someone, and they're trying to kill them pretty much. So you think they're the killer. Again, it's hard for me to dance around without spoiling a lot, so I don't want to go too deep into it. But an event like that happens, and then when people try to go get help, there's a bunch of cultists outside who's not letting them leave, because if you try to leave, you get the stabby, you know. And this is a hospital. There's a couple cops in there, but for the most part, you can't just go around shooting people, even if they are cultists. And plus, there's so many of them, eventually you're going to get stabbed. You'll run out of bullets. So people can't leave. This is another good movie that deals with body horror. Like stuff, your own body becoming a nasty, grotesque monster and betraying you. And people that you think that you can trust, that you can't trust. People that you think that you can't trust, that you can trust. It's a really, I think it's a really good movie, and it's on Netflix. I think The Thing is available on Amazon Prime right now, if I remember correctly. I think that's where you can watch it. And The Void is available on Netflix. Again, The Void is kind of extra credit. I don't think it's as good as The Thing, but it came out like 2 or 3 years ago. It's a relatively newer movie. It's an indie movie, but very well done. The gore in it looks fantastic. I think it has a lot of good spooks and scares in the movie. I think the storyline is actually pretty good, and the end of it gets really wacky in a way that I think that, really sticks with this H.P. Lovecraft thing of mm, not alien, but like, just, like there's different dimensions and stuff like that. I think it definitely starts dealing with that kind of stuff, and it's very interesting to see. So I liked it. Not one of my highest recommendations. I'd probably give it a solid 7.5. The Thing is definitely The Thing for me is almost a 10. It's a solid 9.5. I love The Thing. So with The Void sitting at a solid 7.5, I do very much think it's worth a watch, and it's one of the easier ones to find because, like I said, it's on Netflix. So that has to deal with, your cosmic horrors, your body horrors, and stuff like that. So another thing that another series of stories and stuff like that actually that H.P. Lovecraft is more known for, because he does all kinds of stuff. But if you talk about H.P. Lovecraft, I think everybody can agree that you say Cthulhu, everybody knows what that is. Everybody and their mother knows what Cthulhu is. But I think more interesting than Cthulhu himself, because Cthulhu is actually just one of the elder gods. He's just one of them. He's one of the more important ones, because he's the one who can like wake up the sleeping ones and yada yada yada. But he's just like a priest or something like that. But I love I love water. I love the ocean. I love the sea. I love lakes and stuff like that. I like to go swimming. But it's also the thing that scares me the most is water. Water is the thing I love the most, and it's also the thing that scares me the most. I think it goes hand in hand because I love horror so much. But when you're swimming out into the ocean or even a deep lake and you just look down and it's nothing but black, and it's getting cold as you're going out, and you just know that down there is something that can grab your leg and pull you under. You're just waiting for these tendrils and tentacles to wrap around your legs and pull you down into the cold below. You just don't know what's down there. That's horrifying to me, and true. I mean, it's real. I mean, shark attacks, giant squids, all this stuff that is realistic, not to mention the stuff that we don't know about, the stuff that we've never gone deep enough to see whether these things are real or not. So he has a lot of stories that deals with that. There are quite a few stories that are interlaced. Two that I recommend. The two that I recommend most is Shadow over Innsmouth. Shadow over Innsmouth is kind of a lengthy story about a guy who's visiting a place called Innsmouth, and they have these, and there's like these fish people looking things. They're people, but they have fish like qualities. Like it's not like a fish head sitting there. Maybe some of them, but for the most part, it's like imagine my face, but like bigger eyes and like a little bit of gills and stuff like that. They still kind of look like people, but they're mostly fishy people. And so, but in this world, I guess that's kind of a normal thing. I mean, it's weird for him, but he's just like, okay. So Shadow over Innsmouth and Dagon. Dagon is one of the gods that they worship. He's actually a pretty scary god. But Dagon is a separate story, and it kind of goes into more of the religion aspect of these fish people. So again, these are some of my favorite Lovecraft stories. And I guess you'll just go ahead and once you read those, if you're feeling so inclined, read Call of Cthulhu. I mean, if you've never read that, that's pretty crazy. But go ahead and read Call of Cthulhu as well, because all of this has to deal with Cthulhu as well, because it's all based around each other. But a lot of people know about Call of Cthulhu. I don't hear as many people talking about Shadow over Innsmouth and Dagon. Those are two great reads if you like that watery horror type things. I definitely recommend that. And there's quite a few movies and books. There's actually a movie called Dagon that I hadn't really put on my list of things for this week. But there's a movie called Dagon that came out in like 2002. Once you read these stories, I really like that movie. It's kind of an indie movie. I wouldn't say it's too cheesy. It's actually very creepy, and I think the special effects are very well done. Again, it's from 2002, so maybe it looks a little dated or whatever, but I highly recommend, if you can find it, Dagon. You'll notice it by the cover, this fish person with sharp teeth. But I thought that would be cheesy at first, but it's not. If you really enjoy these stories, check out Dagon the movie. That's just another piece of extra credit that I do recommend it though. So with those, I don't really find very many movies based on those, unfortunately. I don't know if I have ever myself, besides Dagon, ever found a movie like based on Cthulhu or anything like that. That I can think of. If you know any, actually post down in the comments below if you know a good Cthulhu movie, or like, Shadow over Innsmouth, anything like that. If any of his water horror, stories that were turned into movies or even shows, please send me a link down below, because I'd love to see it. But what I do know about is the games. There's been quite a few games that have been based on this. In fact, 2019 is filled to the brim with Cthulhu type games, like those types of games. The HP Lovecraftian water horror books, that we're just filled to the brim, which is a good thing for me. Even though most of them kind of have been hit or miss. So so we're going to talk about the games that have to do with that, but none of them that I'm going to talk about specifically have to do with Cthulhu or even H.P. Lovecraft. This is something where I talked about before. Lovecraftian has become its own genre, and for that, I think a game called The Shrouded Isle fits that perfectly. The Shrouded Isle is actually one of the first games I ever did a Let's Play of. I did it back in like 2017. It might have been early 2018, 2017. Then it was only on computer. But it lets you you're like a leader of a death cult, and you're not walking around, it's not this big AAA game, and that's actually what I like about it, is it's very much spend a year and be done. It's kind of reminds me of, it could have been a maybe even like, how would you explain it, like a board game in a way. You really have to see gameplay of it, like, to kind of understand what it is. But you're a leader of a death cult, and there is a old god named Chernobog, and there are these multiple households. You have a community with multiple households with the head of families and their descendants and stuff like that. and each one are into different things, and they're each one is good at separate things, and you're kind of running your own little village type thing. If you've ever seen Frostpunk, think of that on a smaller scale. So at the end of each year, you have to choose somebody from these households to sacrifice. Nobody's gonna live, like 100% of your population will never live. Like, you can get new people in and stuff like that, but at the end of the year, you have to make a sacrifice. And throughout the year, you're trying to find people who maybe are against your cult, or the biggest sinners, things like that in your cult. And it has its own rule set of what makes people sinners and stuff like that. So you need to take the worst person and sacrifice them, because and that's a little, you're gonna have to do a little detective work to kind of find that out, which it's like you're a cult leader who's also a detective who's trying to find the best person to sacrifice to an old god. That's what the game is. If that sounds interesting to you, then check out the Shrouded Isle. I can't really give away much more without spoiling the entire game for you. There are multiple different endings for the game, and every time you play it, it's going to be very different. And it actually just came out at the beginning of this year on Nintendo Switch, and that is a perfect place for that game. I played it on PC, but they had some DLC and all that stuff, and it's out on Switch now. And for this Halloween season, the Shrouded Isle, just sit back there, turn on like some spooky music or something, and play the Shrouded Isle, and I think you're gonna have a great time. I mean, I know I did. But another game that is going to be came out last year on PC, that's where I played it, but it's coming out on PS4, Xbox One, and I believe it's coming out on Switch. Yeah, I think it was announced for Switch and then the other one. So anyways, it's supposed to be out this fall, which it's fall right now, so hopefully it comes out very soon. But it's called Return of the Obra Dinn. Now this one might be a little controversial because it's not inherently a horror game. Neither was the last one, but I don't think something has to be inherently scary to be horrific. I don't have to be scared of something to know that it fits this spirit. And that's what Return of the Obra Dinn is. So you are an insurance clerk or an insurance adjuster, I guess you'd call it, who is going out to you rowboat out to this boat that is a ghost ship. There's nobody there. None of the bodies are there. You have to figure out what happened here so that you can make insurance claims. It sounds funny, but it's actually not a very funny game at all. So the thing that's special about you is you have, I think it's like a compass. It is the best way I can describe it, is this compass thing that lets you see these portals that open up. And like you can kind of step through the portal and you'll go to the scene of the death. It's just kind of like a still shot. It's not moving around or anything like that, but you are having to look around and see, okay, well, this man killed this man. This is how this man died, yada, yada, yada. Like every crew member on this ship, you are having to figure out how they died, where they died. You're having to figure out their name, everything. You have to fill all this out before you can complete the game, and it is very cool. It is, and that's also coming to Switch, PS4, and Xbox One. This is something that, honestly, I know for me, I played some of it on stream last year, but after that, I just kind of barreled through it in like 1 or 2 sittings. It's not a very long game, but it's a very good game, and you kind of get out of it what you put into it. And if I know for me, solving stuff, like because you do have to solve this on your own. So if you just kind of want to see the story unfold, there's a lot of Let's Plays and stuff like that. So this is one of those that I think the Shrouded Isle is something you need to play yourself. Or you could watch one of my Let's Plays and then buy it and do your own run. But I think Return of the Obra Dinn is very much a linear story. That kind of you have open reign of the ship, but it's a linear story. So you could watch somebody play through this entire game and treat it like a movie or a show, and I think you'll get just as much out of that. It's really cool, and I don't think that Return of the Obra Dinn is something that you should miss, especially around this Halloween season. If you're in the H.P. Lovecraft movie, if you're in for something Lovecraftian, these 2 games are, I think, perfect and right up your alley. Because, they're up mine. But, so, there's actually 2 more games that I wanted to talk about, but not necessarily recommend. because the last two is very easy recommendations. The next two is like where I wouldn't call it not AAA, but at least AA. Like these are bigger, games that kind of don't work as much for me. The first one, of course, is the game that came out last year called Call of Cthulhu. This is a traditional first-person survival horror game. A lot of people, well, it's not. I guess it's not like a Resident Evil. There is some action and stuff in it, but a lot of people were mad at it because it's more of a walking simulator type thing. And the reviews for it are actually pretty positive. I mean, it's based off Call of Cthulhu, so if that's something that you want to play a game that's based off of that story, go for it. You can probably find it on sale somewhere. It's on Switch, PS4, Xbox One, and PC. There was an old Call of Cthulhu game, but you'll find it. It's the recent one, 2018. I just really don't have much to say about that one, but I did just want to go ahead and let you know that there is, of course, a Call of Cthulhu game. If you're interested in that, if you have a Switch, PS4, any of that, you can play that. So, and hopefully you can find it at a good price, and maybe you'll like it. This game is, people love it, people hate it. There's kind of no in between. Watch some gameplay of it first. But another one that actually just came out this year, and I have put about 5 hours to, and I've tried and tried and tried to like it. I wanted to like it so much because I love Shadow over Innsmouth, and because I love Dagon so much. This is my favorite type of stuff. So I was like, I need to like this game. I want to force myself to like this game. Keep playing, keep playing, keep playing. It's called The Sinking City. I think it's a good game that could have been a great game. The combat is not very good. The graphics are pretty good. Like you get the sense of this environment, and you get it definitely feels like you're in a Innsmouth type place. But I also think it's a little too slow in plotting. I think that there is too much. It's a huge game. It really is a big game. There's a lot of side missions you can do. This is an open world game with this pretty big open city that you're exploring. You're going underwater, and you're finding like these, old temples underwater and stuff like that. And I think that's really cool. There's a lot to like about the game, and I'm gonna give it a second chance. I think I'm gonna play some more of it. Maybe I'll do a stream of it or something because I want to get further into it. But just know this is not a foolhardy, all-in recommendation. Just because I think that it takes a very specific person to like this. It's made by people who did the Sherlock Holmes games. So if you played those, I think that you'll feel right at home with these. Maybe it's just a game that I'm too dumb for. I think that's probably what it is. I mean, I'm just too dumb. I'm a dumb, Like my brain barely works at all. I'm surprised I can get out of bed and dress myself every morning, to be honest. So so that's probably what it is. But this is another one where the critical reception is kind of like mixed on it. So maybe it's not just me, but maybe it is just me. But look at some trailers, give it a shot if you can find it for cheap. That's what I'd say. So the last thing that I'm going to talk about for our horror homework this week, and I know I've already given you a lot, but since we're not doing a show this week, I'm trying to give you more movies and stories and stuff like that. Well, I guess this kind of will be a show, but if you're not into anime or manga, I'd say still give this a shot. There is somebody who has followed in Lovecraft's footsteps. His name is Junji Ito. He's been big since the late 80s. He's a huge name in the horror anime scene. So if you know about that kind of stuff, you've definitely already heard about it. So I might be preaching to the choir. But he's somebody who when I saw that the Junji Ito collection, which is an anime, came out, I saw that and I saw a couple episodes and I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. This is very interesting. And then I saw reviews of it and they were like, this anime sucks because it's not nearly as good as the manga. They can't capture the same feel. And so I was like, well, then I need to read the manga. And so I picked up quite a few of his books, and I picked up this one, Uzumaki. So I won't talk about all of his works. I will say, of course, check out the anime if you're interested. It's on Hulu, the Junji Ito collection. But I want to specifically talk about Uzumaki. And he's got, of course, some more story. He writes a lot of short stories, and he's actually been writing for so long. This was a series of short stories that they put all into one book. And and he's got some more that also fit this Lovecraftian theme. But I specifically want to talk about this one because of all the stuff that I've read from him so far. I have not read everything, so I'm saying so far, this has been my favorite thing. This is it's the town that was obsessed with spirals, which sounds weird, I know, but the stories start off like, look at this beautiful illustration. Like, look at that. Oh, look at that man with his curly tongue. I want to show also some more. Like, look at that head. So as you can see, everything that, as I was mentioned before, it all has to do with spirals. Look at this spiral right here, spiral, spiral, spiral. So it is a collection of short stories that all surround this one town that, as you can see, is obsessed with spirals. And it kind of, you find out later on why this town is so obsessed with spirals, why there's spirals and everything. When you look at the sky, why there's spirals in the sky. Why is there this crazy stuff that's happening? I'm going to spoil one thing. Like, some people are starting to turn into snails, and, they have the spiral shells and stuff like that on their back. Why are some people, like, obsessed to death with, like, finding the spirals and stuff and becoming a spiral themselves? And it's just, it's so good. It is a different form of Lovecraftian because there really is no old gods. There's no overarching monsters that are out to get us. It is more of a thing. It is a spiral like that this town is so obsessed with. And like in one story there was this girl whose her hair starts doing spirals, and people become obsessed with it because, like, the people in this town love spirals, and so they can't stop looking at her and can't stop oohing and awing over her. And another girl gets jealous, and they have a spiral off with their hair, and but it's just so weird, and like each story is so different and so unique. And some of it is truly terrifying. Like, I'll say overall, it's more like weird, and the horror is like, some stuff is horror, like, hey, that stuff is scary, but also people can be terrifying. The way we treat things, especially later on in the book, like when hunger is affecting us all, what will we do? How far will we go to satiate our hunger and our needs? Like, this book just transforms from something kind of simple and silly into like this, it spirals. It's like circling, it's a city that is circling the drain. And but like, just like in a spiral, every ending of that spiral also has a beginning. So like, and like, spirals never truly end or begin in a way. And he's just so smart. It's just so well written, and of course the illustrations in it are so fantastic. I can't recommend it enough. That is going to be the final recommendation. I don't know if it'll be at your local library. Some libraries do have anime, so if you don't want to spend any money on it, of course, go to your local library and see if they have it. Uzumaki by Junji Ito. This collection is well worth your time. And if you're just looking for, hey, I want to get a new book, but I don't want a book like, The Stand or something like that that's going to take a long time. Since this is a manga, it's mostly, it's illustrations and stuff like that, but it's not going to take you long to get through. I think in total it took me maybe 4 to 5 hours to read this whole thing, and I just could not put it down. And also, as I said before, I'm stupid. I'm a big dumb, so it took me a long time to read it. But for you guys, you'll just breeze through it, and that's a good thing. But I think it's also lengthy enough that you'll get your money's worth. I think I ended up paying I think Amazon had it for like maybe $17 or something like that. I'm really not sure, but yeah, I really do recommend it. So hopefully, I inspired you to check out some Lovecraft, even though I guess I should have said right at the beginning, he had his own issues, and there are some people who were kind of against some of the things that his personal beliefs and stuff like that. But I don't want to drill down into that. I just want to talk about the things that he wrote about, he did, and what he did for the world of horror. I don't think that we'd have a lot of our people like our Stephen Kings and or people like that if he didn't come along. Edgar Allan Poe did a lot for the horror community, which some people will say he's a hack, but I like his stuff, so some people will agree or disagree. I'm sure some people will agree or disagree on Lovecraft. We all have different opinions about everything, but for me personally, I know he's one of the writers who kind of awoke in my love of horror and these type of things. Just seeing a picture of Cthulhu, I remember seeing a picture of Cthulhu when I was younger and always wanting to know what that was, and that's I took this deep dive, and I just love these types of movies where the horror is something that you can't really just understand outright. So that's pretty much everything. Again, I'm sorry that this video was longer than the normal ones, but like I said, we are right in the middle here, so we're down into it. I had to give you a lot of suggestions that like that you got to fill your weeks of horror. I mean, if you're me, I sit here with my indecision of, well, do I want to watch this? Should I read this? Should I play this? What should I do? That is what I'm doing this for. I am giving you some suggestions so that if you can at least it helps you narrow down, okay, well, these at least get their all-in guarantee, which to most people doesn't mean anything, but I hope that it helps you to at least give some things a chance. Like The Thing, I have friends who will not watch movies that are old because they look old. Give The Thing a chance. It's a great movie. I mean, you're not losing anything by watching it, and I think you might find something that you really like. I know some people don't like anime and manga and stuff like that because that stuff is for weebs, and I don't want to look like a nerd, but I think if you give the Uzumaki a shot, I think that you'll like that. I want to recommend things to you that you may not give a shot because of your own misgivings for it. I'm trying to tell you, like, these are the best things out of this. If you don't like this story, or if you don't like Shadow over Innsmouth or stuff like that, then you're probably not going to like them. But these are what I think are the best pieces of media from like Lovecraftian lore and stuff like that. So at least give it a shot and leave me a comment down below to let me know what you think. I've rattled on long enough, so I'm gonna let you go. And guys, I really appreciate you guys for stopping in. The horror homeworks have been doing pretty well, and I'm glad to see that because I put a lot of time and effort into these. So I really enjoy hearing from you guys if you like them. I really appreciate you guys taking 30 minutes to an hour out of your day to spend time with me and listen to me ramble about these things, about something that I am passionate about. And hopefully, even if you aren't passionate, hopefully you can find about horror, hopefully you can find something in here that you'll like, because some of these stories are very scary and some of them aren't very much so. Some of them I think anybody can handle. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And so that's I hope you guys have a good time this week. Hope you guys enjoy everything. And yeah, I'm excited to see you guys next week as we're winding down this Halloween. Until next time, bye bye.